Should we start with Daryl Powell? Because he's off to Warrington.
I'm not starting with him. I reckon he could take me easy.
3 weeks for press conference. It takes that long. I love you, Dad.
I mean, according to something John Davidson wrote, he won't be the only person leaving Castleford to go to Warrington. He wrote that about a month ago, but this is not shocking news, is it?
Depends who you're thinking as in not the only person to leave Castleford for Warrington. Are we talking player or staff member?
Well, I think from John's stories, I think one of each, perhaps.
Certainly, I think a staff member. Player, I'm not so sure. I think Warrington want the player, but I'm not sure the player wants to go.
Which is interesting. But Daryl Powell moving to Warrington, I guess it's been kind of, as soon as Steve Price announced he was leaving and Daryl Powell announced he was leaving Castleford, it kind of made sense.
Are both coaches going to stick it out for the remainder of the season? I know, like, with all the will in the world, the idea is lovely, but do we really think that that's going to happen, Bill?
I think the important thing is that both clubs have got a big turnover of staff coming. And by announcing it early, there's absolutely no doubt that Daryl will get involved with who he wants at Warrington and who he wants to bring in at Warrington. So I think that's an advantage to have that out in the open. They're both, on the basis of what we saw last week, playing well enough for the coaches to stay where they are. Daryl actually seems really relaxed now that it's all out there, and he's a jovial fella off the camera anyway. But sometimes he can be a bit taciturn on it. But he seems to be trying very hard to be relaxed and enjoy the year for what it is. I think he'd want to see it out at Castleford. The only doubt for me is that if Warrington play more like they did in week 1 than they did in week 2, will there be a push from the Warrington board to hasten it? But I think they'll stick where they are, and then nobody's paying out any deals to end contracts early, and everybody knows where they sit. There's going to be real pressure on Daryl in this job. I think when he took Castleford, it was the dream scenario for him. It was his hometown club. They were on the crest of a slump when he took over, and immediately he could institute what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it, bring in some of the players he wanted to it. There was a time element. I think in the first full year to get to Wembley, elevated everything and hastened it perhaps even quicker than he'd thought it would do. He's not going to get any of that luxury at Warrington. He's been brought in to deliver the Holy Grail, assuming that Steve Price doesn't this year, and that will put him massively in the spotlight. It may be what he wants. Will be interesting to see if how much leeway he gets from the Warrington board and the fans.
And like Phil said, I think Steve Price will stay, because will the Warrington board really want to pay off the fella who's leaving anyway? And in terms of Daryl, I mean, there's lots and lots of players out of contract at Warrington. Will he sort of keep some on? Who will he keep on? Who will he bring in if he's going to bring new people in? And also, who will Castleford go for? Will Castleford go English, or will he look Australia way? Or it's a real sort of big sort of question for Castleford. I think he's more questions at Castleford than there is at Warrington, to be honest with you.
I think Gary's absolutely right on that now. There are quite a lot of players out of contract at Cass as well. They need to get somebody announced and involved in the process of retention and recruitment ASAP. I also think that it says something about relative ambitions, because I think Daryl has realised that there is finite resource at Castleford that there possibly isn't as much at Warrington. And if he is going to build a team in his image, he is going to get some players in either from his current club or wherever he thinks that the gaps are at Warrington. He's going to get the resource to do it. I'm not sure that Cass are in that position at the moment. So I think the spotlight now well and truly is on the Tigers.
And think about Castleford, the difference between Castleford and Warrington. For Daryl to move in, Warrington's got the infrastructure off the field. It's got the ground. Without wishing to offend anyone off of Castleford, does Castleford have that? I don't think it does.
We were asked actually earlier on Twitter by a Warrington fan. As he says in his statement, he's totally committed to Cass for the rest of the season. Who will be doing the recruiting at Warrington? I mean, it would be foolish to think that they can't just ask him, but he doesn't work for them yet. It's
Well,
It's a strange world of sport and contracts.
Anyway, I don't think he's doing the recruiting at Cats.
And
He'll have a say in the style that he wants to play and the players that he wants. The ones that are out of contract that he wants to keep. It would be absolutely naive to think that there wouldn't be any contact between Warrington and Daryl from now until the end of the season. And that, I think, everybody appreciates that. The only issue will be is if players from Castleford who are still under contract, even if a transfer fee is paid, are approached by Warrington, then that might cause some issues. It's going to be interesting when they meet each other again. I said that both clubs wait until after the first round before announcing it, but some added spice to look forward to when they face each other again.
And in terms of recruitment, I mean, yes, Daryl's not at Warrington yet, but is Lee Brace staying? Is Andrew Henderson staying? Is Aidy Gardner staying? They'll all be there now, so they can play a part in recruitment and retention, ready for the new guy to come, even if the new guy coming doesn't have to say so on it or the final say. I mean, they'll sort of run people by Daryl Powell's, say, "Oh, do you fancy him? Do you fancy keeping him? What about him? What about him?" But then it doesn't necessarily have to be a case of Daryl sort of only doing recruitment and retention for Warrington. There are people at Warrington that can almost like do it for him.
In some ways, it's a throwback for Warrington as well. It's almost like the recruitment of Tony Smith, I think. Plays a very attractive brand of rugby, gets fans on side because they're exciting to watch. There's just still this question mark of what is the missing ingredient for winning a grand final. I have no idea what it is, and I'm sure they don't know what it is either, because otherwise they would have found it. But it might be the combination of players. It might be bringing in some of the youngsters and actually giving them an extended run. But there will be a massive pressure from day one to deliver on the one thing that, even if they win the Challenge Cup final again, which fantastic day out at Wembley, hopefully with fans behind them. It's not quite what they want. It's the big one.
You mentioned it before. I mean, Daryl has something that incoming Warrington coaches haven't had for a few years, and that's a decent crop of youngsters to go at. Whereas Warrington have been guilty, perhaps in the past, of not bringing players through their system as much as they should have done. Whereas now it looks like they are doing.
They've also been guilty of having them and not playing them. And I think that Daryl, likes his projects, and he will see some very talented kid who we won't be frightened to throw in and leave in, rather than, put in the squad and withdraw the following week. So, I think he'll be excited by the challenge. It will just be interesting to see the level of pressure that he'll be under from minute one, which he hasn't had at Castleford.
Is Daryl going to move over to Warrington? Because Warrington to Castleford is a bit of a trek, especially when all the traffic's back on the M60.
Well, Tony bought a flat, didn't he, in and around the area? I suspect that Daryl will do the same.
I remember Tony actually lived in Salford, I think.
Yeah, he did actually, near Salford Lads Club. I only know because he used to follow him after a press conference in car and wave at him on the motorway.
Well, if he's still got the room, he'll be hiring it out.
Yeah, true, yeah.
It's not getting over the top bit. That's the problem. Not from one side to the other. Once you're over the other side, that's fine.
So Gary does news. We just pontificate for the sake of it. Who is going to be the next coach of Castleford? If you were a bookie, who would be the front runners?
I'm McDermott.
If I was a bookie, I would go one of three. I would include McDermott on that list. I'd also go James Ford or Danny Ward as well. I'd have them three on the list because the home base, and I'm not sure it's because of the restriction of it. I'm not sure it's the time to go Australian.
Danny Ward's much admired there, I know that. But Danny Orr, perhaps, back in a head coaching role.
If he's offered the head coach's job, I think Danny would go back. I'm not sure he'd go back to do the exact same job he left at Castleford anyway.
I'm not sure he would go back.
I think he would if he was in charge.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, if he was head coach, I think he would go back.
But interesting times.
They can go back to Fev and get James Webster. Worked for them last time.
Yeah.
Probably won't be Sean Wayne, though, because he seemed to rule himself out of, the Warrington job this morning and the Castleford job. So
I think he knew he hadn't got the Warrington job. I'm not sure that... sometimes you get a fit with a player or a coach. I'm not sure Castleford is a fit for Sean Wayne. But, of course, Adrian Lamb is out of contracts at the end of this year. Sean Wayne back at Wigan.
You've got Andrew Henderson as well. Like he was, it was between him and Richard Marshall at Salford. So it's interesting to see how.
Hendo would be great at Cass.
I'd have preferred him at Salford. No offence to Richard. No offence.
You've given him 2 full games.
Yeah.
No, I like Richard Marshall. You know what? Like, think about let's just talk Salford, obviously.
Let's talk Salford.
Yeah, Salford's like they started rubbish last season, didn't they? It's 2 games. You cannot make any judgment on 2 games. It's ridiculous. I see that like Twitter's gone into absolute meltdown already, though. Like, Huddersfield have had a great start, and Salford have had a great start. So that's it. The season's done. Everyone's made their minds up.